Welcome to Grayleaf Tech Talk, and my name is John Laub. I'm the CEO of Grayleaf Technology Consultants. Today with me is Ray Steen. Ray is Chief Strategy Officer for MainSpring Incorporated. They're a managed services provider in the Washington D.C. area, and also in Northern Virginia and in Maryland. And we've known each other for a long time. Grayleaf and MainSpring have worked together for a lot of years. And we've worked really just working together, helping MainSpring clients just identify pain points and create solutions to just resolve those impediments. Ray and I met while we were working together as contractors. It seems like a long time ago now, Ray. And then sometimes it seems like it was just yesterday, but we were together as contractors. It's where we met at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Incredibly, it's been almost 10 years ago, I think, when we first met.
Wow.
And I was a technical consultant. Ray was a stakeholder relations and outreach project manager. But after we kind of went our separate ways of FEMA, we continued to work together. So really what we're going to do is just have a discussion today. It's kind of an open chat. I'll tell you a little bit about Ray, and then Ray, I'll let you talk about yourself a little bit. But Ray has, he lives in Northern Virginia, and he has 5 beautiful kids, and one of them is a technical prodigy of sorts, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of them pops her head in and just checks in on Ray, because you know, Ray's a great dad, and you know, so really today's meeting is just talk about MainSpring and you, Ray. So Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about your kind of professional background and how did you get to where you are today.
Thanks, John. How I got here today, I have no idea. Where I came from, you know, my background is in strategic communications and public relations, actually. I spent a good part of my life in the commercial and nonprofit sector, working for organizations around building awareness and understanding, such as the American Red Cross's disaster relief mission. You know, 10, 15 years later, after working in the private sector for the federal government, you know, working together at FEMA to, again, help people through disaster situations. And I guess now that I'm talking about it, maybe that's kind of the common thread. You know, now I'm in a consulting capacity working for a small IT firm supporting, you know, more than 50 organizations in the DC metro area, head off disaster, you know, really before it comes true. And you know, I'm if there's anything that's come to me over this period of the last couple months, it's that you know, I'm proud that many, if not all of our clients are in a better situation and have been prepared for, you know, the disruption in their workforce, maybe not the disruption in their business and their revenue. But it makes me feel good that we've been, you know, we were there to help prepare them for this, that they were able to act swiftly and at least keep their operations and their staff safe throughout this time. So glad to be here. And yeah, now, you know, I never thought that disaster was a common theme, John, but now you got me thinking. Maybe it follows me.
Well, definitely helping people out is part of what you do, Ray, and you're very good at it. Tell us a little bit about MainSpring, though, and so MainSpring is a managed services provider. So really, what does that mean, and what exactly does an MSP do?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that, you know, the area being in the DMV belt, you know, there's no shortage of managed services providers. You know, we are in an area that's rooted in technology and cybersecurity. I would say the managed service providers category has largely been dominated around being a help desk and being that remote monitoring and patch management organization for as an outsourced IT. So many organizations, you know, small to medium-sized businesses, nonprofits, and associations that are focused on their core mission, they've leaned on managed service providers to be the outside consulting team, the IT firm, the help desk, and what it's evolved in over the years is they're really looking for somebody to be that C-level advisor And that's something that really drew me to our organization over 6 years ago. John, you and I worked in the consulting space, for the federal government. We oftentimes did not have the latest and greatest tools at our disposal to equip the mission. And the public sector and the private sector, now have the ability to kind of, go hand in hand. We certainly do government consulting. MainSpring does for the Army, and we lean on a lot of that expertise, and we leverage the tools and our best practices at our disposal so we can help organizations, really select the right infrastructure, select the right tools. And my favorite part of the role is really just bringing good partners to the table at the right time, because not every organization has the money or the maturity from the IT perspective to move on everything at the exact same time. So I enjoy working with our team. We have a very proactive model, which I know is overused in our space, but in the truth, it's a proactive meaning we try to prevent problems from happening more than once, and in many cases at all. And we do that through continuous process improvement, which runs through and through in the organization, and something that I know Gray Leaf is heavily dedicated to, in the development space.
Tell me a little bit about this proactive nature of what you do, and what does it really mean, and really why should clients care about that?
Sure. Well, when I sit down with some of our clients and I get to meet them, understand why it is that they decided to come on board with MainSpring, some of the same problems that they carry with them resonate to our model. I don't know what I don't know about IT. I find myself doing IT-related tasks or planning or budgeting, and that's not my job or my role, and I'm the least qualified person to do it. But because because IT rolls up under me, that's what I do. And these are some of the things that our new clients or prospects often say, and what they're looking to do. I have no idea how efficient we are as an organization. I don't know how efficient our employees are. I don't know how many are suffering silently with issues and not asking for help. I don't know how many workarounds that they have established. I don't know what software applications they're looking at or using because it's a shortcut to their current processes. I don't know what happens, when there's a major disaster. I don't really have a protocol that I could, flip a switch and know what we're going to do. And I also don't know what our IT costs are going to be. And those are the same problems that seem to persist through and through with every prospect that I've used to meet with. I don't meet with prospects anymore. I spend most of my time with our clients. And our clients, I'll when I meet them, I'll understand why it is they decided to join with us, because they're looking to solve those issues. And while every organization needs all layers of the IT help desk and continuous monitoring, patching, and auditing, and that advice, they need it in a way that is aligned to their business. So when an organization suffers from an outage, or they have a server failure, or they have this come up, and all of a sudden they don't know how to respond, and another company that they've hired, like a managed service provider, if they benefit from it, that's not true alignment, and that's really not true partnership. So what we've found is a different way to deliver all those services, but to align our whys, why we do what we do. The only way that our organization benefits is if a company stays in business and grows, and that's the only way that we profit. And we back that by doing things like onboarding only a couple clients a month, because we spend a considerable amount of time to learn an organization, to meet with their stakeholders, to re-verify things that maybe the point of contact that we've met with thought, but didn't know was happening in other departments, and then laying out a really simple roadmap for them to follow that adjusts based off of their circumstances. It needs, there's no good at delivering an IT assessment and then a plan and then marching toward that for 3 years. A lot changes. In fact, as we've seen, a lot changes in even 3 months. So to be able to assess what our recommendations and way forward is, put a return on investment on what that investment is going to be in terms of hours and efficiency and risk, and then constantly be able to reprioritize and act quickly on those, I think gives organizations the kind of agility that they need to, to continue to work and feel comfortable that their staff are adequately supported and that they're with the right tools, and then be able to pivot when they need to pivot.
So really, it sounds like you guys just don't, you're just not fielding help desk tickets. It sounds like you do. Right. You guys are doing some real consulting. It sounds like, you don't, the idea that you're not going to come in and say, okay, we've done this 1,000 times and we know exactly what you need. Instead, what I heard was, you kind of embrace the concept that, well, you're unique, right? Your clients are unique. Each one of them is different. And you take the time to listen and work with them and ask good questions and figure out, hey, what is the right points? What are the pain points? How do we engage? How do we solve, the issues at the right cost that really are relevant to you and that deliver the most business value? Would that be a correct statement?
That's right.
So tell me, Ray, with this approach, are there organizations that are kind of better suited to that model or less suited to that?
I wouldn't say that there's necessarily an industry that is better suited, although those that understand and know that IT is not is an important part of their business, but not what they need to invest manpower on site 24 hours a day on. I would say the organizations that believe that efficiency and risk and the amount of time that is spent in those areas is a soft cost worth monitoring and measuring improvement toward. So meaning the number of hours that their staff are dealing with IT related decisions, IT related problems, or the number of hours that their senior staff are spending on selecting the right software, managing vendors, managing crises, evaluating new tools, doing budgeting beyond the annual budgeting. All that time is time that can be spent working on the business, working on the organization's revenue streams, working on employee-related activities for retention and growth, and really should be something that should be led by a CIO. And I say CIO in the true sense that it's beyond the technology. CTO, I think, is probably something where most organizations that hire an MSP, they think they're getting a CIO and they're getting a CTO who's probably commissioned to sell product versus understanding the organization, what their business initiatives are, and how does information flow throughout the organization and through different departments, and where are the challenges? How is payroll processed? How are time cards coming in so that you can reduce, time entry issues? How are you measuring your accounts receivable? What's your cash flow? So it goes beyond the IT and it goes into business areas of focus where we like to be able to lean on our expertise and our portfolio of clients and share real world experiences. And honestly say, we've worked with associations in this space before. They've used this product before. Here are some of the benefits, and here are some of the challenges. And that's the best part, I think, of every week is that Friday meeting with CIOs talking about things, the infrastructure and the bits, and really into solution solving. How can we help this organization within the next 2 weeks? What's the most important thing they can do beyond the technology? Because they've already checked out the technology part of their brain, and they're leaning on our CIOs to ask for recommendations in areas that they think are the most important at that time.
Can you expound on that a little bit more? You hear that term a lot, virtual CIO or virtual chief information officer. Can you talk a little bit about what is it about that virtually that is so powerful, and how does that role mean, for different tech partners?
Sure. Well, as I said, I think most tech partners have locked in on that VCIO term, but they're probably delivering very technology-focused, industry-specific knowledge and expertise in that role, and they've also focused on the products that they're selling. One of the best, I mentioned it earlier. The best part of, I think, being in the commercial world is being able to play with current modern tools. Whereas in the federal space, we're kind of a little bit behind the curve because it takes longer for newer software to enter that space. In the commercial world, I really believe, and we all do, and it starts at the top, that we need to be able to use any tool at our disposal. We're a Microsoft partner, of course. We're an Apple partner. We have worked with a variety of tools and solutions, and we don't subscribe to focusing on selling product and making margins off product. We subscribe to understanding what the business need is, determining whether that solution really fits the organization and their culture, and then implementing a solution over time at the right speed. So, John, you and I have worked a long time together, and we've done a lot. In fact, we've built our business on SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint, but it's not for everybody. Sometimes there are other solutions that are available, and we have brought other solutions to the table for that. And I think being able to lean on an advisor that's more focused around the long-term success of the organization and the support of the organization than the products is really what distinguishes the difference between a CTO and a CIO. The virtual nature of it is, I'm not really sure why the V has always been there. They're real people. They have lives. They're local. They need to be able to meet face to face, and of course do this as often as necessary, without limit. And that's another piece of the puzzle. Not limiting our clients to a quarterly business meeting where we're going to fill their brains with jargon and IT roadmap recommendations, and then walk out for another quarter and come back. There's very much a relationship that needs to be made right from the onboarding time, and those VCIOs meet with beyond the heads of the organization to understand the culture of the organization, so that when they make those recommendations, they are rooted in understanding of where the organization can adopt new technology on their pretty timeline.
So you're not trying to come in and have a predefined agenda. You don't try to sell a tool or a product. Is it safe to say you're pretty much solution agnostic, right?
Correct. Our only currency is time and risk. Those are the terms that we focus on the infrastructure side. It's not until we really shore up those infrastructure risks and productivity issues before we get into some of the scalable conversations. Organizations want to be able to do more with less. They want to be able to stretch their grant money into making software selections into, let's say, a new CRM or a new marketing tool, and that's where those can really do some work and understand and relate, real world examples with real world clients, what's worked and what hasn't, to shorten the timeline. Because no client's going to tell you, oh, it's been great. I just talked to an individual who said it took him 2.5 years to implement Salesforce. That is a long time. And imagine knowing what you know now 2.5 years ago. Maybe you might not have done that. Not to say it's the wrong solution, but I think at the time, if you knew that it was going to take that long to implement a change, it would be good to lean on somebody that knows the organization and the impact that timeline is going to have on that kind of transformation.
So I imagine you have a lot of different clients you work with, a lot of different industries. Tell me a little bit about, when you're working with a client, a new client maybe, what type of clients do you look for that are really good matches? Is there anything that kind of stands out as far as, certain clients and their needs that are really a good match?
Sure. I mean, those that are growing and expanding. I mean, I think most partners out there would probably say the same. But those that are focused on growth and adopting new processes to make themselves more efficient, the organizations that seem to always be a good match on that realm are the nonprofits and associations, because they understand how hard it is to attract and retain talent. And I think I forget the article that I read, a while ago, but it's one that I always kind of hark back to, and I probably should have it at my fingertips. But one of the top 3 reasons that people work at an organization and that they're able to retain that talent is because they feel like they have the tools to succeed. Of course, acknowledgement is right up there, and pay and benefits is right up there. But having the tools to succeed, I've been fortunate, to work for an IT firm. I don't think there's any cost is spared to make sure that we have the tools to be as efficient and productive as possible. That's not the case in most in the world today. And I think employees have a choice of where they want to work, and they see that the tools and the resources that are provided to them, whether it be a help desk at their disposal or a CIO they can call at any time and say, hey, I was thinking about our software and upgrading to a different solution so that we can, better align this department's goals to, meeting the organization's mission. To be able to do that is a very powerful asset, and I think is something that, of course, we look for people that are looking to invest in advice and technology to further their goals, but then, those that actually care about the productivity of their employees, because at the end of the day, the first thing that our VCIOs are going to talk about is how productive have your staff been over the last month or the last quarter or the last 6 months. And we're going to watch that data and trend over time, and we're going to be able to explain why there were peaks and why there were valleys. And then we're going to be able to target those areas to see if they are an anomaly or they're a trend. If they're a trend, then we're going to come together with a solution. And because we're focused on productivity, it's our job to make sure that few tickets come in, even fewer repeat issues come in, and that people feel like they know what to do every day, they know where to reach for help, and they know where they're going to be going in the next year.
I can't help but think, talking to you, that you seem like a coach, and I happen to know you are a coach. You're a soccer coach, and it just occurred to me that do you find, like, the work that you do, coaching soccer, is there things that you kind of have found useful coaching your soccer team that kind of translates into your professional life and the work that you do with organizations?
I think understanding why you should be doing what you're doing first. I do coach. I'm trying to remember, U14 boys team, and I've got a U6er running around here who you mentioned might be popping her head in from time to time, and then 3 other soccer players, or 1 former and 2 other in between. So the thing that the routine that I like to follow in every practice is, of course, we start off with something that's routine and team building, and then we have these breakout sessions where we talk about what we're going to be doing in this practice and the next practice to prepare for the next game, and why we're going to do the drills that we're doing, so that there is purpose behind it, and we can ask those questions up front, and then the buy-in takes place when they start seeing some of the results of that practice. I think that's very similar to the way we approach our clients. We talk about why we are going to be recommending a solution. Usually it's rooted in data, if not some kind of urgent business case, and why we're going to take the approach that we're going to take, and what success looks like after that. So when we go through a project, or when we implement a new solution, we already agree before we do that what the new world is going to look like, what the department's going to experience during and then after that. So it prepares them for that game. So, preparing for a launch of a new product, preparing for a system upgrade. We don't need people in the middle of the game turning over to the coaches and putting their hands up and going, what do I do? And I'm surprised by this result. And the same goes for our clients. We don't need people in the middle of an implementation or after implementation turning around and going, what was going on and what do we do now? We have to have a pretty rock solid process around our projects, and it goes to planning, implementation, and evaluation before we release something. And then, of course, being the support team and understanding that change is hard, being there on the ground and virtually for when unexpected things happen, and being able to respond. So that's probably the one thing I would relate to the business. We prepare our clients for what's coming. We talk about why we're doing what we're going to do, and we talk about the process and what's going to happen afterwards. So
I can tell how much this you take this very 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 it's exciting for you. I can tell. It's tell me a little bit about. I want to switch gears for just a moment, but tell me a little bit about you, Ray, as far as like what to you is like the perfect vacation. Tell me, if money were no object, kind of what to you would be the perfect vacation?
Perfect vacation would be one that I don't plan every single minute and every day when I'm there. You ever do those Myers, John? I remember doing those back in the Army days, and
I do.
My Myers-Briggs, whatever persona at work is the exact opposite at home. So I always had a challenge of which version of me am I gonna answer these questions for? Because they repeat the same questions over and over because they want to double check that you're not changing your answers. And at least the Myers-Briggs that I took, 10 years later, I took the same test. I finished the same way. So I guess, there's some truth in it. I would say the best vacation is, it's just a family getaway to the beach and unwind and play a ton of sports. I've tried to make home a little bit of a vacation on the weekends. My backyard looks like a carnival between moon bounces and trampolines and bag toss, and I can't even tell you. And I'm just like a kid out there. I like to play, and I'm very competitive, as my kids would tell you. So I like to have a whole marathon of sports and games with the family. So really, I'd like to do just that, but not in my own house for once. So I'm looking forward to a time of putting my feet in the sand and kicking back.
Do you have any guilty pleasures?
Fantasy sports. Above me is I'm a Chicago Bears fan through and through, and a
I'm
Boston
sorry
Celtics
about that.
fan. Yeah, I know. So I've taken some lessons from some of my friends who are sports fans and have named their kids after some of their favorite sports teams players, and I just skipped it and I named my son, my fourth child, his name is Bear. That way I could assure he would not show up to be a Packer fan one day in life. And my youngest daughter, her name is Boston, so that she'll never don the purple and gold of the Lakers. So I am dead serious when it comes to sports, and I miss my fantasy sports as well. It's what I scroll through on my phone late at night, early in the morning, or when I'm sitting on a bridge somewhere and not moving. And I think sports has a healing power. So I'm looking forward for it, to come back both in real life and in fantasy.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's get back to MainSpring. So tell me, Ray, a little bit about. So we talked about kind of, in generalities, kind of how you interact with clients and the types of things you do. Tell us a little bit more about services, though. Like what services do you provide, and kind of what benefits do those provide clients?
Sure. Well, any MSP or IT partner worth their salt is going to provide a help desk with an awesome experience. That's right and true. All of our IT people are employees of MainSpring. The story and how our IT support team ended up down in Florida, I think characterizes who we are as a business. The manager of the support center wanted to move closer to home, and the leadership at the time, this predates me, offered for him to do both, to Florida and set up our support team. So we're fortunate enough to grabbed some very unique IT engineers and some really smart people off some NASA contracts in the government space down in Florida, and our support team is remarkable. And I know everybody would say that, but I think the last time I looked, the satisfaction scores, you know, the buttons you can push, the stars or the smiley faces, I mean, it's been like 99%, you know, for years. Every time I get, you know, one of our clients puts in a survey, the entire management team and others gets copies of the survey, and that's how important satisfaction is. So I use them probably too much. I can hear my colleagues screaming from, you know, towns beyond, because I don't bother to try to fix anything, because I believe my time is valuable and they can fix it 10 times faster. So I put tickets in and they solve them right away, and I don't know why I'm amazed, but you know, it's you know, they're pretty remarkable. So that's important. And an important piece of that is, you know, they take the time to know you, and they also take the time to help prevent that problem from happening ever again. That's really important, and to our model. I have, you know, we've got a team of people that are cyber experts that are constantly monitoring networks and patching systems. My computer, you know, I wish was the same for my home network, but for my personal computer, I'm gonna have to have a meeting of the minds with my IT guy here to see if our systems are patched.
Is that your son?
Monitored. Oh yeah. Although he does come within a second.
Yeah.
Perfect. Every time there's a problem, because he's that eager for it. But you know, every organization should be patching and monitoring systems and traffic and alerting, you know, those that should be alerted. And then also, you know when there's a network outage before it happens. You know, I think it's an incredible benefit to be able to know before I come to the office that Comcast is down, and we knew it before Comcast told us, and to tell us that it's going to be a 6-hour window and I should turn around and go work from home for the day. And that's something we do for our clients. So, you know, that's something that, you know, I think, you know, few people probably understand or know that exists, but could be really valuable. So that's, you know, the infrastructure, the reactive version of, you know, not version, reactive part of our model is very important. It is the part of the organization that our clients interact with most, because it's the day-to-day productivity and efficiency of the staff members that we're protecting. The piece that I mentioned before, that's the proactive piece, is really the continuous auditing of our clients. You know, every month there's a meeting of the minds that there's an infamous name for it that shall not be, you know, shared, but they gather, they argue, they discuss with passion all the issues that came in from our clients, and they take great offense to because they understand that we promised our clients that they would be efficient. And if there are things that have come in to the support team that should not have come in or should not have come in again, we relate those back to a continuous auditing scorecard, where we look at every best practice that is either a drain on the organization's productivity through an audit. And in that same audit, we measure risk. You know, there are best practices for security. And so by tying real world, real client issues to those failed audit points and the recommendations, we now have an ability to prioritize projects to fix those non-compliances, because we can tell you that that issue that you're experiencing in your organization has consumed X number of hours for your staff over the last quarter. And while it's not a sexy, you know, technology solution, it's something that you should put in place to protect those hours from continuously adding up on your soft costs and draining your staff productivity and frustrating your staff. Because at some point your staff are going to give up and say, keeps happening, I'm not going to keep putting it, you know, I'm not going to keep asking you for help if you're not going to solve the root issue. So the continuous auditing, the proactive piece of it, is something that we have to do regularly, not once a year, because the audit points change, because the best practices change. The industry shares those best practices, the government shares best practices, and we update our audits based off of those best practices. And all of that really translates into a lot of technical failures and successes on an audit that then get articulated in a non-complicated way by our CIOs to our clients. Say, here's how compliant you are to best practices. Here's how productive you were over the last quarter. The recommendations you took last quarter led to an improvement in your productivity, in your efficiency, and it reduced your risk by this many percentage points. And as a result, your staff are this percentage happy. Those metrics and that executive summary is very different than the old world MSP, which is, look at how many problems we solved. Wow, we love our help desk. They answer the phone really fast and they solve it really fast. And sure, we keep growing, so we deserve to have more problems. No, you deserve to have the fewest problems possible and to know what those problems are and to have something proactive in place to prevent them from happening. Otherwise, you're going to lose your staff because they're going to get frustrated. You're not going to see the gains that can be gained out of looking in a proactive IT model and a partnership. And you're constantly going to be reacting and saying things like, I never know what my IT spend is going to be. My people are really unhappy. They feel unproductive. How do we do more with less? You do more with less by being proactive on the IT front and understanding what your clients' needs and problems are, and then putting solutions in place to reduce the friction.
Wow, Ray, that's amazing. So what you're saying really is that, these virtual CIOs, they're real people. They're actually in person. They're people that show up, right? But the audit is really, I imagine that the audit really is, it really allows companies, because so here's my thought. I mean, a lot of times, we know things aren't where they need to be, but we don't know why. And so we were like, it's like, I don't know what to do. And it sounds like this audit is hugely instrumental, because now, these audit points really get to the heart of various matters. And, some business, it could help conceivably to help them save money and even generate new revenue. Would you agree?
That's right. They get to focus on their business and take the IT part of their company and rely on a partner that is going to do that's going to take time and risk and use those as barometers for determining a way forward. And that, I don't know a company or a person who doesn't want time back in their day or their work week or their schedule to reuse that time, to invest in either client delivery or improving their employee well-being or leading their business or making sound decisions.
So our time is almost up, but I did want to, there was one important thing I wanted to make sure to cover today, Ray. I think that a lot of companies in our area and probably everywhere are very, very concerned about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, so CMMC. So tell us a little bit about that, and what should they be doing about that?
The short end of it is they should be pursuing their NIST 800-171 guidelines, which have been out there for years. CMMC is the government's way of repackaging and reinforcing a standard that has been in place for some time, where they know that organizations that do business with the government are a risk area. How they handle data, how they manage their network provides a wormhole in for cyber criminals. And so the government has asked anybody that does this with the government to continue to work towards the standards that were laid out with these bars and NIST 800-171, and they've created a new model under CMMC where it should be easier for them to understand what level they need to reach. In addition to that, the government is putting its money where its mouth is, and it's accrediting assessors, outside independent assessors, to verify for the government that anybody that needs to be CMC certified is actually meeting those requirements. That's a difference in the past, where self-assessments and self-attestments were acceptable. The day will come where you will be asked to meet with an assessor like an auditor, right? Like meeting with the IRS, although they probably won't like that comparison. to verify that they are actually meeting the requirements that have been laid out in the NIST 171 handbook, and that there's a plan to meet those requirements, right? The government has always worked with small businesses to say, please show us a plan of action and milestone, a POAM, and a system security plan to show that you take this seriously, that you're working towards something. That's still in place. It's still valid today. So while CMMC is continuing to shape and communicate how it's going to roll out, how it's going to train assessors, how organizations that do work or build a federal government or the government in its entirety, how they should be preparing for that, I think the best advice would be continue to work with your IT firm on understanding where you are in meeting those requirements and what requirements you should have in place. In most cases, if you're meeting 80% of those requirements, the top 20 security protocols, you're going to be in a lot better shape than those that have been ignoring it and believing that the government isn't going to come knocking someday. Nobody is going to be outside of the CMMC requirement. They've made that very clear. What hasn't been clear has been the timeline. Of course, current events have affected that timeline. But the good news is, I would say that most organizations that are working with IT firms, those IT firms are well aware that the requirement exists, and they should have already been having conversations with their clients about what to do to prepare for that. Because it's beyond just passing an audit. It can position a lot of our clients. It's a leg up on competition. John, you and I worked in the government space as consultants for years. Government want to work with companies who have met the security requirements and or have a plan, or those that haven't started. And that's how contracts are awarded. Contracts are awarded because the government feels comfortable about the requirements, and prime contractors and subcontractors partner together to form good teams, and good team members are those that are best positioned to meet those requirements to work with the government. So a lot of the CMMC standards in NIST can be scary, but they are, when decomposed, really best practices in IT. And I think I think there's a lot that can be gained by organizations in meeting some of those requirements anyway. A lot of those requirements are a part of our audit for organizations that don't need to meet CMMC accreditation. And that's because they've been known to reduce problems and prevent problems and reduce risk. So there's a lot of valuable pieces of the CMMC model, and I'm sure we're going to continue to learn more as they continue to release information.
So speaking of security, it seems like a day hardly goes by where we don't hear of a ransomware attack and, organizations being extorted for vast amounts of money. Tell me about does MainSpring do anything to help their clients protect themselves against ransomware? And if so, what do you do?
Sure. Well, beyond the infrastructure and modern tools, used on the back end, everybody knows that people are the weakest link for an organization when it comes to ransomware. We're all busy people. We're running around with sometimes 2-3 devices a day. Oftentimes we're on the road, and communication happens quickly. Text message, emails, phone calls. And the sophistication of ransomware attacks have come in the form of video, voice, text, and email scams, posing to be colleagues, posing to be prospects or clients, asking for people to take action in those electronic communications, whether it's texting back, clicking on a link, or opening an attachment. And so what we've done is we have become huge proponents of security awareness training. And back in the day, back in the Army days, it was just through 8 hours of briefings, and you get your certificate. Maybe you pass the computer-based training module, and then you never talked about it for a year. Similar to the auditing process, a lot changes. The tactics that criminals use change seemingly weekly, often monthly. And I'm amused by our provider that gives us the tools to roll out a security awareness training today at some of the sophistication that's being used. At any rate, the modern tools for cybersecurity training is really to enroll all of our clients and their staff into an ongoing security and awareness program where they are constantly tested by our team in the form of fake phishing attempts and attacks. And the best part about that is really the immediacy of the learning. So when someone clicks on one of our campaigns, they see exactly that they fell for the attack and what they could have looked for in that attempt to improve. And it's that kind of immediate corrective action that is really kind of taking a foot in micro learning. In addition to that, we're able to look on a very large scale for organization and see what their virtual risk score is. So very much like an assessment we do, the IT assessments that we do in continuous auditing, we get a score for organization, and it helps senior leadership understand where they are in the spectrum of risk. How do they compare to their organizations in their industry, and how do they compare based off of their seniority in their organization? Because we know that the more senior you are in an organization, the higher risk that you present if you're not staying up to speed with the latest and greatest. So in addition to that, everybody has a magical button in their email where they can click a button and say, I'm not sure if this is right or not, but I'm not even going to go any further, and I'm going to hit a button and I'll let the IT firm determine whether it's real or not. And that's powerful because when the Stop Think Connect campaign came out under National Cybersecurity Alliance, they wanted people to stop, think about what they were looking at, and then connect with the individual in a different form, picking up the phone and calling them, or connecting a scam to a scam, and determine whether it was fake or legitimate. And this magical button, allows a person to act on it without really acting on it and doing harm. So being able to send a message that they think is suspicious, get a little bit of a forensic eye on it, and then response back is a powerful, shield that they can hold. And then, of course, we provide very micro-learning training modules to our staff, 2 minutes, 3-minute videos on some of the most modern, spear phishing attacks and malware attempts that they can, they should be aware of. And it's not the old hour-long by PowerPoint.
That's amazing too. I mean, so really what you're doing is, along with that kind of micro learning you're doing with video training and things like that, you're actually simulating phishing attacks, but in a completely safe manner, where these phishing simulations are very convincing. End users are all getting them at some point throughout the the work week, apparently. And if they don't detect it's a phishing scam and they do click it, they know it's completely safe, but they're automatically, there's that feedback cycle is what you're saying, right? And
right. Yeah, there's positive feedback. Yeah.
Positive feedback. It says, hey, you know what? Guess what? These are maybe the things you could have looked for, and this time, it's. But I imagine when they do hit that button, the magic button you mentioned, that reports that, I imagine they're catching real phishing attacks, conceivably, correct?
Absolutely. And by doing so, they are alerting their IT firm of an opportunity to help safeguard the rest of the staff because they're doing their neighbors a favor in identifying an address that probably should be blocked so that nobody else has to go through the same process.
You mentioned the first line of defense earlier, which is really making sure all the firewalls are kept up and making sure that the threat protection is all in place. However, we both know that hackers are smart people, and they're always seeking to circumvent these firewalls. And so they'll create new domains, they'll do all kinds of very innovative and creative things to get around. And even the best, I was reading a statistic recently, Ray, that said that even the best firewalls allow 7 to 9% of these threats through. So, when you mentioned the last line of defense, right, being the user, that's such a powerful way to make sure that you're really training your users and your clients to be very, very good detectors of these phishing attacks, which is really amazing.
Yeah, I find the training very powerful and very modern and very easy, and it's been satisfying to see our clients continue to improve on security awareness training, whether they want to call it training or not. They are sharpening their skills, and they are improving the security posture for their organization, and they're protecting the intellectual capital. And the organizations that are using it the most are finding other ways to using the training modules to improve areas beyond just spear phishing, like better understanding PCI compliance and safe handling of credit card information, and protecting personally identifiable information. So security can run deep. It can get complex, but I like the platform we're using, and I think it's a very effective training and education tool.
So Ray, our time's about up, but if somebody wants to discuss how MainSpring might be able to help their business, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. We've got a website called GoMainSpring.com. It's got a lot of information up there, a lot of case studies, a little bit more about who we are as a team. I like our people page, and we've got some nice bios up there. We've got a very diverse staff and very experienced staff that have been with the organization for a very long time, and they're a great bunch to work with. So yeah, check out GoMainSpring.com. So
GoMainSpring, that's GoMainSpring.com.
Correct.
So if you're looking for someone to discuss your business, if you're feeling some pain points and you're just trying to figure out, hey, I need someone maybe with a new set of eyes to chat, or you just want to find somebody to discuss, compare soccer coaching styles, please feel free to reach out to Ray Steen, and I'm sure he'd be able to set up a free appointment and talk and figure out, hey, is there some way we can help? So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.